Hi, and welcome to the Virgin River Cafe Rewatch podcast. I'm Tracy,
I'm Gigi.
and welcome to another fun-filled episode, although this one I don't think is as fun-filled. I mean, once you hear the name, you kind of figure it out. But anyway, how's it going, Gigi?
It's going well. We're getting over the holiday season.
Yes.
We're doing good.
I'm glad yours was better. Mine was full of urgent care visits, the flu, virus, a bit of pneumonia, some sneezing, some coughing. It's not been fun. Not so much fun. It's been rough, but we made it through. I'm still at the tail end of it. We took a week off because of the holidays, and I literally had no voice. It's a little hard to podcast when you have no voice.
That is quite true.
So we needed to take a week off, and we're
Yes, we
good.
did.
We're good. Fortunately, we had one in the can, and I could get it going, and it gave me a little time to
The recover.
to recover. I'm not there
hmm
yet. I'm still working my way through it. So pardon any coughing that I will try to edit out, but it's rough.
Well, we'll take it easy and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we're just gonna work through it. No problem. Because I'm a mom, and moms just power through. Anyway, all right. So what
All right.
what are you drinking today?
Today, I'm feeling a little on my festive side, so
Glad
I'm gonna
somebody is.
yeah. One of my specialties, which is not often I get it, but a cafe mocha
Oh,
with
nice.
extra chocolate.
Extra chocolate. A hot coffee, of course.
Yes, of
And it's
course.
been raining up by you, yeah?
Oh,
Send some
we
down
need
here,
it.
please, because we
We-
we've got none. I've seen clouds. I've seen overcast. We've got lots of fog, not a hint
Yeah,
of rain, and we need it. So send some
yeah.
down if you could. If you got a minute.
I'll try to talk to the person above, Mother
Yeah.
Nature, and
Yes.
see what she has
See what she's gotten stored for us. Thanks. I
That's
appreciate
right.
that. Um.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I went with a shocker, a hot drink today, but my
hmm
throat, the coughing. I thought I'd go with a little oolong tea that I
Whoa.
that I steeped myself and just.
And folks, the fact that she's drinking something hot, you know something's wrong.
Well, it helps with the coughing. It just helps a lot.
I know it does. I know it does. It's just the fact that you're drinking something warm.
It's
It,
nice. I mean, it's cool here.
hmm
I don't know, it's like 50 degrees or something, which I know people don't whine, people who are in like zero temperature. Whatever. I'm in Southern California. 50 degrees to us is cold. I'm sorry.
True. That is quite true.
Sorry, it's 60 degrees. So I really shouldn't be complaining. But I'm a Southern California girl. I've lived here longer than I've lived back east. So my whole demeanor has changed against weather. So,
Well, you and me both. This. I've lived here in California longer than I've lived anywhere else, whether it's Europe or the Caribbean.
yeah.
So I consider myself a Cali girl.
Yes.
A little bit of a New Yorker, but that's right.
All right. Okay. Let's get started.
We are now on still season 3, episode 7, Split.
Split. Okay. So this one says Jack meets with a custody attorney and his stress begins to overwhelm him. Begins? I thought we were knee deep in overwhelm, but okay. Brady gets brought in for questioning and Muriel offers Doc advice.
Mm.
Okay. All right. So remember in our last episode, we there was an emergency at Lily's farm, and we don't know if it's Chloe or it's Lily or Tara. We don't know what the problem is. So of course, Jack the chauffeur has to run
Yep.
Mel there, and of course they call Doc. So everybody's there. So it's Tara,
hmm
and Doc says that she has epilepsy. That it's been like 5 years since she's had a problem, and they were explaining like what exactly happened and the medicine that she's on, and Doc's checking her out. Tara's very like dazed and confused, and
Yeah, she looks lethargic.
yeah, she's definitely out of it. Like she doesn't even know where she is. Now this is the first time Mel's ever dealt with Tara in this situation. So I guess they have Jack take Lily in the kitchen to make coffee. Kind of give her something to do. You don't want the hovering family members all around. While Doc and Mel, go through and all their normal things, have her sit up, check her blood pressure, check everything.
hmm
So Doc goes to talk to Lily, and Mel starts asking Tara some questions about did she hit her head, and so she checks her head, makes sure she's okay, and make sure she's got no bumps or anything, because obviously she could have fallen and gotten a concussion or something. And then she's going to have Lily wake her up every few hours throughout the night, just, to check on her, make sure she's okay. So then she puts a blanket on her, and then she's going to go and talk to Doc real quick. They're going to confer. So Mel wants to know what her history is. And I guess what happened was that when she had a bad fever when she was an infant, even though the medications work really well, sometimes stress triggers a seizure. Well, all the stress. She now takes care of Chloe. She's taking care of her mom. They just found out about the cancer. And so Mel had come up with that they need help. Mel had said, she's going to need some help. We need to figure that out.
Right.
So Lily also knows that stress is what triggers it. And she tells Jack that they were sitting in the car talking about the cancer. And when they got home, she had the seizure. So, of course, she feels guilty. She feels like this is all her fault, that it could have been prevented if maybe she didn't have cancer or she didn't have Chloe or whatever. So Jack...
The what ifs.
I know. It's always like that, though, right? And she's upset. She's concerned because then they hear Chloe crying, and Jack's like, I got it. I got this. Because, Jack's the all-around, I can take care of everything guy.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes in, and he's going to take care of Chloe, and he picks her up, and he's hugging her and rocking her, and she's crying, and he's like, it's okay, and he's lifting her up and holding her. It's very cute. It's very cute seeing him hold the baby. And he's like, what do you need? Look at this toy. Isn't this pretty? Isn't this cute? Yeah, the baby's not having it. She is not having it. She's very fussy. And he's like, well, close your eyes. Let me put you back in bed. And he goes to lay her down. She's not having it.
No, it's
Fortunately,
not that easy.
No, fortunately, there's a rocking chair. So he sits in the rocking chair and he's like, you're not ready. You're not ready. It's okay. He goes, well, when it comes to all of this, I'm not ready either. But he's like, but don't tell anybody. And he's just rocking her. So he's sort of on Chloe duty. So it's morning and we have lovely scenery. And Jack is laying in bed. He's asleep. And Mel is packing because remember, she's got to go to L.A. for Joey's divorce hearing.
Divorce.
And she's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you up. And he's like, what time is it? And she's like, oh, it's early. And he's questioning her like, wait a minute. I thought you weren't leaving for L.A. till tomorrow. And she's like, well, yeah, I'm not. But, I have a lot to do today. And he's like, baby, I have to explain why I'm not going with you. And she's like, assuming she knows why. She's like, no, it's fine. I understand you can't leave the bar. I totally get it. And he's like, no, it's not just that. I mean, he's all tousled hair in bed and everything. She sits on the bed next to him. And he's like, but I want our first trip to be special, not your sister's divorce, believe it or not. And he's rubbing her hair and talking to her. And he's like, you look a little tired and you should come back to bed because, and she's like, I told you I have a lot to do today. And he's like, yeah, but it's not even 7. And so he grabs her and he kisses her. And she's like, you're not making this very easy. And he's like, really? He's like, good. He goes, I just want some attention. I'm thinking she was late to wherever she was going. That's my opinion.
Stress.
So now we're in Preacher's kitchen, the lovely kitchen that it is.
Yep. What I kill for.
I know, right? Connie shows up and she says that Christopher. Yes, Christopher's outside playing with the dog, Tucker. Now, remember, the dog was at the lumberjack games and Jack had
the dog was evicted.
Yep. Poor Tucker. Poor Charmaine for having to give up her dog because her boyfriend's a jerk. But Christopher fell in love with the dog. So Preacher offered to take the dog in. And Connie's like, what? And she's like, oh, yeah, so you're already dog sitting? Like, aren't you a saint, And Preacher was like, well, yeah, but we offered to take him in when Jack went to Lily's. And Christopher took one look at that dog and it was love at first sight. And I didn't have the heart to say no. And I mean, she's like, oh, you're just an old softie. Then again, they're like, yeah, Christopher kind of needed a buddy. So it worked out. It worked out that Christopher has a buddy and Jack doesn't have to deal with the dog. Mm-hmm. So Connie gets a message about camp. And apparently the play that they've been working on and he's been learning his lines for and getting ready. Apparently, they're canceling it because I guess the guy in charge is no longer going to be there to do it. Everybody's like, oh, the two of them are like, Christopher's going to be devastated. And Connie's like, not on my watch. Like, she is not going to let that happen.
Ah, yes. I love the zest of this woman. It's amazing.
She just takes care of what she needs to take care. I mean, so does he, but
Yeah. Well, I think it's that southern part of her,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that
yeah.
just goes,
She's
yeah.
like, I'm going to call over there. I'm going to take care of it. It's going to be fine. And he wants to like jump in and help. So he's like, I'm going to call. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to do it. Connie, you've been doing so much work around here that, I feel like we're taking advantage of you. And she's like, well, you saying you don't want my help because you certainly can't do it all by yourself. And he's like, no, 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 not exactly. It's just, I'm worried that you're going to resent me later. And she's like, oh. He goes, I thought you'd be relieved. She's like, uh-huh, yeah, I am. Okay, wonderful not to be needed. So now he's offended her. I mean, he's trying to be a nice guy by saying you don't have to do everything.
Yeah. But what he doesn't realize is that she needs this distraction.
She needs it as much as he needs her. They need each other in a weird way.
Yeah.
So sad. But let's hope they work that out. There's one split, okay? That's the first. The first of many in this sad episode. This is a very tough episode. This is a hard one. I needed. I should be later in the day so we can have some wine. But whatever. we'll do what we can. It'll just have to be good with tea and coffee.
Yeah, we will have to.
So we're back at the bar. We have a guy there who is in charge of, I'm guessing, like land management or a surveyor, something like that.
He's a surveyor.
That's what I kind of figured. They're looking at plans for the house that Jack wants to build. Remember, his house burned down, and he had plans drawn up so he could build a house. Because remember, he's thinking he's got twins coming. He needs a place for them to live. And now that his house burned down, he needs to build a new one. And he's still got 6 months. I mean, he's got time.
Mm-hmm.
So him and Mike is there, kind of lending hand, being a little support system. And this guy is telling him that there's a spring that's near where his property is. And it's right under the lot. And he was like, what does that mean? And he is like, well, we have to talk to Fish and Wildlife. We got to get another survey done. We got to submit permits. And he's like, well, how long will it take to break ground on this house? And he's like, oh, anywhere between 8 months and a year. And that's if the permits get approved.
Oh.
And Jack's like, what? And he goes, well, it's environmental protection concerns that hold up that have led to a hold on building permits. I mean, it's just a lot of red tape that he has to go through. He goes, wait a second. He goes, the house was built in like the 50s. So there's got to be some kind of grandfather clause that would let somebody build the house before. So why can't we use that? Guy's like, yeah, no. Any new construction requires a new permit. And he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Wait a year for a permit that I might not even get?
Pretty much.
He's like, or sell at a loss. And he goes, I'm sorry, dude. I wish I had better news for you. So he's like, why don't you look this over? Give me a call. Let me know what you decide and we'll figure it out. I mean, Jack's pissed because he's like, great. Now I've got this land that if the house was on it already, it would have been fine. But now that he has to build a new house, he literally can't. And if he can, it might take more than a year. And
welcome to the red tape of living in California.
Yeah. So now he's like, great. Now he has nowhere to live and he's got to move back into the bar. I mean, he's worried. He's like, okay, if I don't have a place for the twins to be, Charmaine's going to use it against him. For sure. That's what he's telling Mike. Like this is just ammunition. Easily. Yeah. Because at this point, it's her and Todd against him.
Mr. Dirtface.
Right? So Mike's like, well, okay, but how about Mel's? And he's like, well, yeah, that's fine now, but if he wants partial custody, they got to have their own room. I mean, that's like a one room. So he's like, and he's like, okay, well, then you got to find another place. He goes, yeah, but with what? Cash. And Mike's like, okay, well, I could sell the land. And he's like, who in their right mind is going to buy a residential lot that you can't even build on?
Exactly.
Because you can't get a permit. He says he's stuck. He's like, I feel like the deck is stacked against me, is what he says. Yeah. He keeps trying to do the right thing and he keeps just getting, shot down and roadblock and walls against him and everything.
Well, I don't blame him because he's definitely batting 1 on the 1,000 here.
He has got, it's like everything that can go wrong. It's like Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will, and it has. Mm-hmm. And Mike is trying to be supportive and he's like, look, dude, remember when we were serving what you'd always say? He goes, the only way to fail is to quit. And Jack's like, well, yeah, I just don't feel like that guy anymore. Which, that's a different life. I mean, he's been out of the military for 7-8 years now.
Yeah.
So now we're at Brady's, and Bree is there, kicking it, just looking out the window with a cup of coffee, and he comes out with no shirt on, puts a little sweatshirt on, sits down with her on the couch and asks what she's doing out there. And she, I guess she woke up before him, and she had been sitting out there for a while, just kind of staring out into the, I guess where he lives, it's sort of in the forest. So he's got like a nice forest view. He has a nice little place, little cabin.
He does.
And they kind of curl up together. And she's like, oh, you're so warm. And he's like, oh, are you cold? I can grab you another blanket. And she's like, no, I just want to stay like this.
They're such a cute couple.
I know they are. And he's like, thanks for staying the night.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, oh, is that a hint for me? Like it's time to go? And he's like, no, actually, I was hoping we could spend the day together. And then his phone rings.
It always, every time the nice, cozy moments with a couple happen, the phone always rings.
Exactly.
Like,
the worst
it's
timing.
Like yeah.
Always. The interruptions are ridiculous. So he's on the phone and he's like, is that necessary? And she's looking at him like, uh-oh. And he's like, ugh. And he throws his phone on the coffee table. And he's like, I got to go to work. And she's like, don't worry about it. Maybe we can see each other tonight. He's like, you know what? I have a better idea. He puts her legs across his lap. She's like, yeah, what? He goes, I'm not going to be long. You stay here and I'll bring back breakfast. She goes, oh, breakfast in bed? And he's like, mm-hmm. Anything you want? She's like, where do I sign? So a little smoochy.
Smoochy.
And he's like, don't move. He's got to go for a couple hours, and she's just going to stay curled up on the couch. That seems
because
nice.
she is unemployed.
Yeah, exactly.
She is an unemployed woman.
So now we're back at the bar. It's still morning, not a big crowd, very few people in there. And Lizzie comes marching in, and she's got her backpack with her, and she sits down at the first booth and pulls out her laptop.
Mm-hmm.
She is like on a feverish pace for doing something.
She's on a mission. Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, damn it. So Ricky comes over and he's like, can I take your order? She goes, I was hoping at least one thing would go right today. And he's like, what's wrong? Because the internet doesn't work at the B&B. It's crazy slow here. She's so frustrated. And he's like, so are you going to ever speak to me again? She's like, I don't know. And he sits down with her. Clearly there's not a big crowd.
No, it's not rush hour.
Yeah. And he's like, I feel like you know what you want, but I don't. And he's like, living together is a really big step, and I don't think we're ready for it. He's like, I love you, and I want to be with you. And she's like, okay. I guess it is a big step. Like, she's just like...
She's always...
She's very impulsive.
Yes, very impulsive. But you have to remember, when you've got money, you can be impulsive.
Yeah. Because there's always somebody to clean up the mess after you.
Exactly. And money is not an obstruction because you can get anything.
Well, and she can, in her position, she can afford to make mistakes. He can't.
Right.
Like, literally afford it.
But I never understood. She knew that he lived with his grandmother.
I don't think it matters. I think she is just selfish and in her own head. I mean, she will evolve, and that comes with age. Remember, she's young.
I get that. But
she does evolve.
I figured the obvious, but it's not obvious.
Not obvious when you're a teenager, impulsive and in love. Come on.
I guess so.
Balls to the wall. I mean, that's just how it is. So she's like, can we talk about the future? And he's like, yeah. So while she's waiting, she's like, yeah, how about I get you some fries? And so
this
then...
very interesting habits.
I know. Well, she likes candy and junk food and whatever. She's...
But when you're that young and you got that kind of body, it doesn't bother.
Exactly. You can eat whatever you want. It'll catch up to her when she's 40. Don't worry.
A little sooner than that.
Maybe.
But yes, it'll catch up with her.
So then before he leaves to go get the fries, she's like, hey, who was that Marine guy you were talking to at the lumberjack games? And he's like, some guy trying to recruit people. Really? It seemed like you guys kind of knew each other. He's like, no, never met him before. He goes, oh, look at that's Granger Smith. He goes, he's a huge country music singer. She's like, he's famous? She's like, yeah. So he's trying to distract her. So she's smiling at this guy who's like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack is behind the bar, and Ricky comes over to him and he's like, something going on with you and Lizzie? And he's like, why? And he's like, I hate to tell you this, but she's checking out another guy over there. And he's like, oh, I told her that's Granger Smith. And Jack's like, no, it's not. Ricky's like, yeah, I know. And Jack's like, okay, whatever. Like, he gives him that look like, I don't even know. I don't even want to know.
Oh, that's too funny.
So Lizzie gets her computer out and she's looking him up, trying to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
So Preacher comes in the kitchen and he's like, hey, I got to drop by the camp. I'll be back in an hour. And he was like, oh, by the way, can you swing by the bakery truck and pick up an order? I told Connie we're running low on pies. Now, him and Connie had a little thing.
Yeah.
It's a
little
little tension right now. So I don't think Preacher's too happy talking to Connie right now. And Preacher's like, can Ricky do it? And he goes, yeah, but isn't Christopher's camp like right by the truck? And he goes, yeah, I guess it is. And he goes, yeah, just Connie and I had a misunderstanding this morning. And he goes, oh man, sorry to hear that. And Jack, of course, the nice guy that he is, oh no, don't worry about it then. I'll go get the pies. And Preacher's like, no, I got it. You know, sometimes you got to face the music. Might as well be now.
Yep.
So
put on your big boy pants.
Yep, put on your big boy pants and go handle your business. So we're back at the clinic, and Mel walks into Doc's office, and she's like, I'm thinking about creating a care calendar to reduce Tara's stress. And he's like, well, how exactly does that work? She goes, well, you create a schedule, people sign up. You know, anything that Lily or Tara might need, you know, like food, running errands, babysitting, you know, that kind of stuff. And he was like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. And Mel's like, I'll talk to Lily, see what she thinks about the idea. And he's like, by the way, I just wanted to tell you, I've decided against bringing Dr. Hansen on. And she's like, oh, I thought you liked her. She's like, yeah, but she just didn't seem the right fit. And Mel's like, okay, are you going to keep interviewing people? And Doc's like, no, I think for now I'm going to put my search on hold. And she's like, okay. She goes, I've been wanting to talk to you about how I told Jack you were retiring. And he's like, what about it? She's like, well, I just want to apologize. I'm sorry that you feel like I breached your confidence. The only reason I brought it up with him was because I was caught off guard and I needed to work out my feelings. I told him not to say anything, but you know Jack, Mr. Protective. He's like, oh, I'm not mad at Jack. I know his intentions are good. She goes, yeah, but you're still mad at me. He goes, well, I wouldn't say mad. More like frustrated. He's like, frustrated how? He goes, look, I've worked 30 years alone to build this practice. And up until now, anything had to do with work was strictly my business. She's like, okay, so you feel like being on your own is better? He goes, well, it certainly was easier because the only person I had to answer to was myself. He goes, you're not answering to me. It's about having respect for a colleague. He's like, I do respect you. It doesn't mean that I'm comfortable having you involved in every aspect of my life. And she's like, whoa, wait a minute. We're not talking about every aspect. I'm just talking about the clinic. And this is where it all comes out. He goes, you don't understand. The clinic, this is my life.
Yeah.
And that's the first time that she realizes this is not just a job for him. It's not just a career. It's everything.
Yeah, he's put his heart and soul into this.
And I think people knew it superficially, but I don't think it really resonated until now.
But I think also you have to remember that with everything that's going on in Doc's life, with the craziness, with Hope, you know, I think it's the only thing that basically kept him afloat while he was going through the crisis with Hope.
Right.
So, you know, I think it even hits harder at home for
him. Oh, sure. 100%.
Than usual, you know, so I think that also is part of it as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
he kind of gets a little pissy about it and gets up and he leaves. And she, like the look on her face, you can tell that Mel gets it.
Yeah.
So now we're back at the bar
and
Lizzie looks at Ricky when he walks up to her and says, I looked him up. That's not Granger Smith. And he goes, oh, I guess not. Sorry. She's like, thanks for the fries. And he's like, so are we okay? And she's like, yeah, but I got to get to work. Gives him a little kiss on the cheek. I love you, dummy, she says. She's just so, I don't know. Fickle. I think it's a good, Fickle is a good.
She's not one of my most enduring characters.
No.
But hey, everybody's got their place in this story.
Yep. So now we're back at the police station, and they've brought Brady in for questioning.
He looks like he's in a lineup.
Well, he's in a waiting room waiting to be questioned, and he is impatient and not happy because he keeps looking at his phone.
He's got a woman waiting for him at home.
He said it was work, but he lied.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just sitting and waiting, and they make him wait, and then Mike walks in.
Not his favorite person.
No. And Mike sits down. He's got a file with him. He kind of stares at him. And he's like, why the hell am I here? And Mike's like, well, we just need to clarify a few things in your statement. And he goes, where were you the night of the shooting? And Brady's like, I was at Juvie's. B vouched for me. That's that bar that Mel and Charmaine were looking for information from. And Mike's like, she amended her timeline, and
What does
that's
that
the
mean
look
for
on
him?
his face. He gets a little worried. He's like,
Yeah.
he goes, there's now 2 hours that you're unaccounted for, which is plenty time to do that. And he shows a picture of the blood stain left over after Jack got shot.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, you actually think I shot Jack? And Mike is like, look, I don't know, Brady. You tell me. It's kind of like they're both sitting at the table, elbows on
And
the
it's-
table, both leaned forward, doing the stare
and it's
down.
a standoff.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a standoff, girlfriend. It's a standoff.
It's a standoff for sure. Who's gonna break the stare first?
Exactly.
And Brady's like, why would I do something like that? Mike is like, when Calvin first hired you, within a couple weeks, most of his assets were transferred into your name. Then Jack turns the cops onto the fentanyl, but to take Calvin down, we needed someone on the inside. You show up, you give us a date and location to score the evidence we need, but then when we get there, everything's gone. Now, Calvin's, who knows? You were the informant. Well, now, Calvin doesn't know that you were the informant that triggered the raid. Otherwise, you'd be dead by now. But he knows that you let Spencer live. Ooh, that might be a problem.
I don't know if it's the lesser of two evils in that situation.
Honestly, I think they're weighted about the same because he may not, the fentanyl thing, yeah, if Brady did that, that would have been bad, but he trusted him with so much.
Yeah.
And loyalty for Calvin, even as a bad guy, loyalty is everything. And the fact that Brady lied to him about Spencer, that was like loyalty. And I think that's why I think it's kind of like either one would have probably gotten the same reaction. I think they're kind of weighted about the same. We'll see. And then Mike's like, so to save yourself, you needed to make it up to him by getting rid of Jack.
I don't think Mike understands that. I don't think Calvin wanted Jack dead.
Well,
sending him a message.
This is his theory. This is his, he's a cop. He's a detective. He's got to look at the facts. He's got to come to some kind of, start forming some conclusions. And I mean, in a way, it makes sense because Jack seems to be the one barrier between Calvin and getting his business into Virgin River. Because Jack is always there to put a roadblock up. Every time Calvin wants to do something, Jack's there. And in a way, I could see, in a lizard mind, Brady thinking possibly first reaction, get the person who's in your way out of your way, and then
that's true. That is true.
Right? It doesn't make sense in reality because of their history together. Brady wouldn't shoot him. Even if he was pissed, he wouldn't do that. I mean, I think Mike believes that, but it's like he has to follow the evidence. And right now, there isn't evidence to clear him.
Yes,
there isn't evidence to put it on him either, but that 2 hours is too ambiguous to say either way. So right now, it's like, this is how you shooting him would make sense. Now, you can prove to me that you didn't do it. Please tell me where you were. Give me your alibi and you're done. So, that's why he brought him in, because there's 2 hours that he can't account for. And we don't know what happened because remember, all we saw was, Jack on the phone and then Mel finding him. Now, we will see flashbacks later that gives us starts to form what happened in that missing time. Mm-hmm. But because Jack still doesn't remember and he's hoping his memory comes back,
Yeah.
But for now, they're relying on evidence because, even his failed memory isn't enough. So Brady's just like, wow. He goes, that's a bunch of crap. Like that whole scenario you just came up with. Yeah, no, that's not me. And he's like, I'm not saying anything more until I got a lawyer. And Mike is like, good call. Because I mean, I think deep down, everybody's pissed at Brady, but I think deep down they care about him. And I think deep down he doesn't believe that he shot him either. But he's a cop.
But
he's
remember,
a cop.
There is that brotherhood thing.
Oh,
Even though Brady has somehow defiled that and messed that up, there's still that brotherhood thing that they're hoping on a love and a prayer, as they say.
Right.
So that's
absolutely.
I think that's where they're all coming from as far as where Brady's concerned. So
Brady's like, all right. He stands up. He's like, am I free to go? And Mike's like, yeah, just don't leave town and stay away from Jack. He's like, okay. And then he shoulder checks him as he walks by. It's such a guy thing to do. The shoulder check.
Yeah. It's the testosterone, I guess.
It's the macho move. So we're back at the bar, and Mel walks in, and she looks down.
Mm.
And
I
he's
guess that
like,
conversation with Doc did not help.
no, no. And she goes to sit at the bar, and Jack's like, does somebody need a coffee? And
That
she's like,
sounds
yeah.
like you.
I know, right? He goes, you have a rough morning too? She's like, Doc's frustrated with me. She's like, more than usual? He's like, yeah. Because, Doc and her things are still contentious. I mean, they care about each other, but things can get off the rails pretty easily.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
It only takes one.
It doesn't take much. It does not take much with him. So he's like, well, what's up? And she's like, I don't know. Something's going on with him, and I just can't figure it out. And he's like, well, maybe he's upset about Lily. He goes, yeah, but he's been acting like this for a while. So Mel asks Jack, so what's going on with you? Because he said he had a rough morning too. He's like, oh, there's an issue with getting a permit to rebuild my house. She goes, oh, I'm sorry. Is there anything I could do? He goes, well, not unless you know how to relocate an aquifer. And she's like, I do not. How about some food? She goes, no, just coffee. I'm on my way to go see Lily. He goes, all right, well, what time are we doing dinner? She's like, I don't know. Between the scheduling and submitting insurance forms and charting, and my day's going to be long. It's okay. Well, just try to imagine doing all that with a baby. She's like, wow. And he's like, what? She's like, what is that supposed to mean? He's like, nothing.
Oh.
This is where it gets a little, and
Dicey.
she's had enough today, so she's not going to play the back and forth games with him. Sometimes they beat around the bush until they get to the point. She's already, it's not even noon, and she's had it. So she's not putting up with his reindeer games today. So she's like, look, it's going to be easier if you just tell me what you mean, because she just doesn't have it in her. And he's like, no, nothing really. It's just like I was with Chloe last night. Every time I put her down, she started crying again. And I had to hold her the whole time. And she's looking at him like, uh-huh. And he's like doing this like juggling motion thing. Like he's like trying to imagine that with two. It's a lot. And she's like, well, I think if you really want something, you figure out how to make it work. Very matter-of-factly.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, just like, where's the breaking point? There's only so many hours in a day. I love how this whole conversation is just catchphrases. Mm-hmm. Like if you listen to everything they say, it's like a saying that's like on a bumper sticker or, something, right? I mean, doesn't it, like everything they say, like, where's the breaking point? There's only so many hours in a day. Like everything that they say, it's like a catchphrase. And it's just so funny how that's the whole conversation. It's like nobody's really saying what they want to say. They're kind of they're kind of like saying what they want to say adjacent,
Well, this is what happens when everybody's on a different page.
So then she's like, well, only you know your limit, see? And he's like, well, I just don't want to bite off more than I can chew. Again. Mm-hmm. I noticed this the first time I watched it. I'm like, why are they catchphrasing this entire conversation? And he's like, look, I'm sorry. I didn't really want to have this discussion here. He's like, yeah, but I mean, like, I do want to know what you're thinking. Like, she's still trying to get him to, like, after I want to have a baby with you, conversation. Like, it's been days, okay? It's been a couple days. Yeah. He didn't say anything at the Lumberjack games, which was the previous day, you know? And so they still haven't talked about it because they had the whole Lily thing they had to deal with Tara, with the running out to the farm. And then she had the whole thing with Doc. So, there've been a lot of, like, interruptions. Yeah. So, and she's like, I know. And she's like, I still want to talk to you about this. And he's like, even if it's not what you want to hear? She's like, of course. And he's like, okay. She's like, I gotta go. He goes, I'll bring home food from the bar for dinner. And she's like, okay, thanks for the coffee. And out she goes. And he goes, tell Lily I said hi. She's like, I will. And a sort of like a handoff wave as she goes out the door. Now he's looking dejected. He's like, oh man, I'm screwing this up big time.
Yeah. Because he wants basically to have this conversation with her. It's just he doesn't know how to approach it in the right manner.
And he really doesn't even know what he wants either. I mean, he would much rather be having twins with Mel than with Charmaine. Yes. But he can't help that. Yeah. It is what it is. And he's already got 2 kids who are not even halfway formed yet. In 6 months, he's going to have 2 kids. And that's his reality at this moment. And all he can think of is, okay, nobody's even touched the fact that she said she couldn't have kids. And nobody's even talked about, like, can you even have kids? Like, what does that mean for you? Like, are we going to have to go through infertility treatments? Like, we're going to work really, really hard to have a baby. And I've already got 2 coming. And that's going to cost me a small fortune. And now we've got to because infertility treatment is not cheap.
Nope, and you
It's
should know that.
I would know that. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive. And she would know that because she's already been through it.
Yeah.
You know, they could try the natural way, but, you know, in her mind, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a fun way to do it, but unfortunately, not everybody's body is meant for the fun way.
Well, and she's like she said, she's already had, you know, problems before.
Yeah.
So in her mind, she told him, I can't have kids. Now, not I can't have kids to I want to have a baby. That just is like, they haven't even talked about. I mean, granted, their relationship is still, we are halfway through the 3rd season, which is 3.5 years for us, or 3 years, whatever it is, 19, 20, 21. So 3 years in Virgin River time. We're like 7 months. We're in the summer. She moved in January, 7 months, maybe. So this relationship is very new. They're,
to say the least,
they've been together a couple months, right? And I get that they're not 25. You know, not only does she have infertility problems, but her biological clock is ticking.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you, as soon as you hit 34, the doctors tell you your AMA, advanced maternal age. Hated hearing that. Like, dude, really?
Yes,
yeah, that was ridiculous.
I remember you saying you hated when they said that to you.
I mean, seriously? I literally, like, got pregnant, and then I turned 34. And they're like, oh, well, now, like, a week ago, I was not advanced maternal age, but apparently today I am. It was ridiculous. But they say it's so much harder, and there's so many more problems, and you have to do more testing, and da-da-da-da, whatever. So Mel is in that range. So she's got infertility problems. She's got an age thing. Not that she doesn't feel perfectly fine, perfectly healthy, and probably in other circumstances would be fine, but there's a lot of challenges. And they haven't sat and talked about anything.
No, they haven't.
I mean, honestly, they need to like sit down and go, well, what does that mean? Like having a baby. What is that? You can't have kids. How would we do that? What does that look like? What's your time frame? Like, this is a discussion that they needed to have when she brought it up. And she just went to like the end result, not how do we get there.
Yeah.
You're like, I just need to know if you want one. Well,
she put, as they say, she put the horse before the carriage.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like, so it's a sort of situation where he's now overwhelmed by all this stuff going on.
Understandable. And it may partly be because she's lost so much. It's like she feels like when she has something, she has to grab onto it, hold on really tight, and get as much of it as she can as soon as she can because it might be gone.
Yeah.
Very possible. You know, there's a lot of motivations for her. I mean, she thought she'd never fall in love again. So
that's true.
But anyway, so now we're back at the camp and they're there. Christopher and his little buddy, they're practicing their lines for the play, and Preacher walks in and Christopher's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, hey, well, I heard you're looking for a new director. And he's like, really? And he goes, that's me. And he goes, oh my gosh, you're the best. They told us the play was canceled. He goes, not while I'm on duty. And he introduces him to his little friend. And Preacher whistles and he grabs all the kids together, has them all sit down, this big guy and all these little kids. He goes, okay, my name is John. Everyone calls me Preacher, and I'm the new director. And one of the little girl's like, well, what happened to Dave? Is he dead? He's like, no, Dave's not dead. Calm down. He had a family emergency. Kids. Out of the mouths of babes.
There's always one kid in the crowd who just goes for the jugular.
Exactly. And so Preacher's like, all right, so our mission is to perform The Wizard of Oz. And one girl's like, you look like an Avenger. And Christopher leans over, he's a Marine. And somebody's like, whoa, have you killed anyone before? The same girl who has a lot of thoughts. And he's like, whoa, calm down there. Let's not. How about we just focus on the play? And
told you.
Christopher's like,
one in the crowd.
Christopher's like, but we don't know what to do. And he goes, well, who here, besides Christopher, knows their lines? And like, no other kid. Not even a kid. He goes, okay, well then that's where we start. And Christopher's like, well, when do we learn the songs? And Preacher's like, songs? And he's like, yeah.
Oh, he looks like a deer in a headlight. He's like, I didn't sign up for that part.
Yeah, this is not what I asked for, and here I am. Oh my.
Oh, pretty.
So we're back at
Oh.
Lily's farm, and Mel's
Hmm.
there. You see the horses in the pasture right out front, and a swing set,
And
and
the red car.
red car, and the chickens, and they're sitting on the porch. And Mel is explaining to Lily this care chart that she's creating and how she wants to help them with meals and errands and babysitting and whatever. And she's like, there are support groups for people dealing with a terminal illness. And she's just trying to offer whatever she can. She goes, well, I'll suggest that idea to Tara. And Mel's like, and Lily says that a support group isn't for her. And Mel's like, well, bottling up your feelings, that can make things harder. And Lily's like, it's not that. She's like, knowing that I'll see Buck, that's her husband, I'm actually not afraid of dying. She goes, I picture us on a tropical beach holding hands, watching the sunset. She goes, that's my vision of heaven.
I love that
And
vision.
Mel's like, that sounds absolutely beautiful.
I love that vision.
She's like, so I'm really just worried about Tara. She goes, well, there's no way Tara can, afford to keep the farm after I'm gone and barely keeping it going with Buck's Social Security. She's like, I know how hard things must be for you. I'll do anything that I can. And she's like, oh, but you've already done so much. I mean, Mel's been such a support system.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know how to begin to thank you for bringing Chloe back to me. And she's like, just seeing you together is all the thanks I need. Ah, the tears. Everyone's crying.
Yeah. It's a tearful situation.
So then Lily says, do you want to know something? She said, all of my children were born here. 2 of my daughters got married here. Buck is buried down there, the family cemetery down by the pond. She's like, so much love. She goes, I just can't imagine Chloe growing up anywhere else. So they want to find some way that they can keep the farm so that can be a part of Chloe's life too. So that's going to be a challenge.
Yes, especially for a young woman who isn't sort of career grounded already. It doesn't look like, she has a job that is.
Well, I mean,
that
yeah, they're gonna have to they're gonna have to figure something out. I mean, this will all come in time. Maybe there's a life insurance that will help, or we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at the bakery truck, and Connie is checking in on Lizzie, and she's like, how's it going? And she's like, oh, it's been a little slow.
These two are sort of.
Remember, she's staying at the B&B still.
Right, exactly.
And so even though she works there, they're kind of avoiding each other.
Seems a lot of that's been going around.
Yeah, split. See more splitting. There you go. Just like Doc and Mel are on the outs, and Mel and Jack a little bit with the baby thing, and yeah, there's a lot of discord going on. So Connie's like, no. I mean, not only how's it going on the bakery truck, but how are you doing? Like you as a person. And Lizzie's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's fine. And she's like, oh, that's good news. She goes, well, not really. She goes, I like Joellen, but oh my God, she's a talker. And Connie's like, yeah, I know. She's like, she's been super nice, but she literally never stops. She goes, I asked about the internet being down, and she gave me a 45-minute explanation without explaining anything. And Connie's like, yeah, that sounds about right. Is there anything I could do to help? She's like, well, it would be really cool if I could come by your house and use your Wi-Fi. She's like, sure. She goes, and bring your appetite with you. I got a homemade mac and cheese in the crock pot. She goes, that literally sounds like heaven. She's like, oh, I'm glad you said that. And if you ever want your old room back, it's waiting for you. No questions asked. She goes, really? So I can come home? She's like, of course. She goes, that'd be awesome. So yay. Thank you, Aunt Connie. She goes, but what about Ricky? She goes, well, if you still want to see him, not in my house. She goes, okay, that's a deal. So yay. Lizzie gets to go home.
Thank God.
Nice. So we're back at the clinic, and Doc is writing out a prescription for Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie's got some high blood pressure. It's 140/90. Needs treatment. So he's giving him he's telling him he's going to write him a prescription, and it's a little higher than it needs to be. And he was like, yeah, you don't take this medicine, you're aiming for a stroke. And he's like, all right. He's going to get the medicine. He's going to check in next week. Oh, and Doc is just kind of looking a little stressed. And who walks in? Muriel walks in, and she's got roast pork with a side of salad. All you have to do is put it in the oven, 350 degrees.
I swear to God, that woman has to be Jewish.
For 15 minutes.
Walking around with food.
She says she's happy that she has someone to cook for. She lives alone, doesn't have many friends, but enjoys cooking. And she cooks a lot of different things.
Yeah, she does. And it all happens to be Doc's favorite.
Oh, well, I think anything edible would be his favorite.
That's true.
Because, he eats whatever. So he's like, thank you. Thank you very much. He goes, well, if you don't mind me saying, you look a little bothered. He's like, it's just a work thing. And she's like, well, do you want to talk about it? I'm a good listener. And he goes, oh, you don't want to hear about work. She's like, sure I do. He goes, well, let's just say I didn't handle a situation with Mel like I would have liked to. And she's upset with me. He goes, well, you could always apologize. But here's the thing. I should have been more diplomatic, yes. But I didn't do anything wrong. Well, why would you think that? He's like, well, as a kid, I was taught, handle your problems by yourself. And now, she goes, and now Mel wants me to run every work decision by her. And that's not how I operate. And Muriel, who is sometimes the voice of reason, has to give him a different perspective. It's like, okay, but you see, if you open up to someone else, then it could help you see the problem from a whole new perspective. He goes, yeah, but that's never been my way. And this is an old dog, is way past learning some new tricks.
That's an understatement.
And Muriel's like, well, saying you're too old to change is just an excuse. Calling him on it. The aging brain actually is far superior in emotional intelligence. So now she's giving him a little ego boost so that he'll do the right thing. It's like she really is good. she's crafty. It's like she massages the situation until, the right outcome comes along.
Well, she's aware that Doc is an old stubborn goat.
Well, it's funny that she's like, it's far superior than our younger counterparts. So in other words, he's better at this than Mel would be. So he's got to take he's got to take the first step. And he's like, and your findings are based on, she goes, a few minutes that I've spent on TikTok. And they both laugh.
At least she's honest. At least she's honest.
And she's like, enjoy your dinner. And he's like, thank you. And off she goes. And that, as he looks there pondering, is giving him something to think about.
Exactly.
Because now he's like, okay, not only did I handle the situation with Mel, I have to fix it.
Yeah.
Because he can't let that go.
I'm glad he realizes that there are things that need to be fixed.
Right. So we're back at the bakery truck, and Preacher shows up. Because remember, he had to deal with Christopher, and then he had to pick up pies. And he was like, Connie's there, and she's like, I have an extra order of apple pies for you. Like, 2 pies. They go through a lot of pie at the bar, I guess. And he's like, well, thanks.
I guess the thing about it is, since they have Preacher's great cooking,
I know.
They have to have some sort of dessert to top it all off.
And it's perfect.
So, yeah, and Connie's good at her baking. So.
And they're like, anything else? And Preacher's like, look, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. I was just trying to be considerate of your time. And she's like, well, you did hurt my feelings, but I respect your intention. He's like, so you forgive me? And she's like, I suppose so. She's like, did you talk to the camp director about the play? He goes, oh, yeah, long enough for her to talk me into filling in for the director. She's like, you? He's like, yeah, apparently no one else wants the job. She goes, well, that's mighty brave of you. And he goes, hey, we're stupid. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing, and neither do the kids. She goes, well, talk to Muriel. She has experience with musicals. He goes, I'm surprised you didn't know that. She loves to act poetic about all that kind of stuff. And he's like, oh, good idea. Thanks. I'll definitely call her, which is actually, that is a great idea. I wouldn't have even thought of that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
And he's like, by the way, you're still welcome to come over and hang out. And she's like, and if I want to do laundry? He's like, well, I'm sure we could work something out. She just wants something to my
house.
I know. All right. So now out the back of the bar, Bree's coming out, and she's putting her AirPods in, and she's going to go for a run. And around the corner, Brady is there waiting for her. He's parked his motorcycle, and he's just chilling. And she's like, he's like, hey. And she's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Now remember, he was going to come back and bring breakfast. And he never showed up.
Yep.
He just basically, in her mind, ghosted her. And so he wants to explain, and she is like running away from him.
Yep.
And he's like, I've been trying to call you. She's like, really? She goes, I waited 3 hours for you to come back without a phone call or a text. He goes, my phone died. And no one at work had a phone you could use. He goes, I swear to God, I wasn't trying to leave you hanging. And he kept coming closer to her, and she's looking mighty pissed.
Yeah, you stand up a woman for 3 hours. Yes, I'd be pissed too.
He goes, yeah, well, you did. He puts his arms on her upper arms on her shoulders. And he's like, look, I'm really sorry. He goes, there's got to be something I can do to make it right. She goes, no, there's nothing. He's like, are you sure? And he's trying to get all cute. And he goes, what about this? And he goes in for a kiss. She goes, oh, no, that's not going to happen. And she backs up. And he goes, all right, if that's how you want it. And she kind of gets a smirk. She goes, I know what you're trying to do, and it's not going to work. Gets a little coy. He goes,
trying to be slick there.
I know. He's like, all I'm doing is admiring how beautiful you are. And she's smiling like, oh, man. She goes, nice try. Trying to be indignant, and it's not working. He's like, listen, I am very, very sorry for making you wait. And he's holding her hands. He crouches down a little bit so he's eye level to her because he's like 6 inches taller than her or more because he's really tall and she's a little tiny thing.
Most people are taller than us.
I know. I know. Me and my 5'3.5". I mean, good Lord. All these men would be like literally a foot taller than me.
Yes.
And he goes, and I promise. He's kissing her hands. I promise I'll make it up to you. And she's looking up at him and they're both smiling. And she's like, oh my God.
He's so cute.
Like, she's like, damn you. And he's like, yes.
He's so cute when he begs.
I know. And then he's like going in for a kiss. And she gives in. And then.
Again.
Jack.
Nobody has privacy in this town.
No. It's almost as bad as the gossip. But we all know how Jack feels about Brady.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Well, Jack walks out the back door and catches her just as she's beginning to kiss him. And he's like, he stops dead. And he's like, Bree? And it's like, our lips are kind of stuck together and can't really hide this one. And she turns around like, I've been caught.
Yep.
And then it's like he gets a flashback of that night. And he sees Jack is in the bar. And he sees Brady, who's in the same kind of sweatshirt. It's a flashback. And he's like, hey, what are you doing here? And Brady turns around and he sees him. He's holding his phone and he's standing there. So seeing him in his sweatshirt with the hood on, it brought that flashback to him. So now he's like, get away from my sister. He's like, Jack, calm down. And then Bree stands in front of Jack, puts her hands on his chest. He's like, hey, we are seeing each other. And she's got one hand on Jack's chest and one hand kind of keeping Brady back. And Jack, I've never seen him this pissed. Like in all the seasons, he has never raised his voice like this before. This is like unleashed Jack. And he's like, you shot me. And he's like, that's not true. And Bree's like, what are you talking about? He goes, you were there. And he's like, yes, I was there, but I did not shoot you. And Bree is like, wait a minute. This is like new information. Because they've questioned people, but he never said he was there. So those 2 hours, I mean.
Yeah, the thing about it is this. I think the thing is with Brady, he knows that he's always the first suspect. And he's trying to avoid anybody blaming him for doing something wrong.
Yeah, but he was there. And now he lied about it. It looks worse.
Yeah, well. He's about to have the consequences.
I swear. He can't get out of his own damn way.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's going to get good then. Because it's a situation where now Bree has to figure out whether or not she wants to hang up with him.
Yeah. Well, he's like, I was there, but I didn't shoot you. And Jack kind of starts to go after him. And Bree kind of throws herself in front of Jack. And she's like, Jack, wait. And he loses it. He's like, get the hell off my property. And he's like, no, she's like, I think you better go. And then he's like, get off my property. I mean, I've never seen him that mad before. Even Bree, her eyes are about as big as saucers.
Mm-hmm. Because I don't think she's ever seen her brother.
No, she's never seen him like that before. And he turns around and he leaves. And she turns around and looks at Jack and runs away. Mm-hmm. And Brady rides off on his motorcycle.
Because now she's in conflict between her brother and her lover.
Yep.
So it should be interesting.
So now we're back at the cabin. Mm-hmm. And Doc shows up with a bottle of wine, knocking on the door. And it's Mel. Mel's like, Doc. And he's like, you got a corkscrew? She's like, yeah, come on in. So they go sit. Remember where he gave her the sushi on that little area? I don't know if it's a boat dock or just a little platform across from the house. It's a cute little place to sit and relax and sun. I mean, it's like a long walk from the house because you got to walk literally all the way around the lake.
But it's a good place to sit on. They seem to do a lot of dining.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time there. It's cute. I like it. So Mel's like, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. And he's like, look, it's not you. I didn't want anyone to know. She's like, what's your prognosis? He's like, well, I've lost about 15% of my vision, but I can function pretty well. Long term, probably facing somewhere between like partial and complete loss of sight. And Mel is like, are you going blind? He goes, in a word, maybe. And she's like, that's why you're looking for a replacement. He's like, correct. And he goes, and I told you that my search had nothing to do with you. She goes, I know, I'm sorry. He goes, I'm the one that needs to apologize. I took my frustrations out on you. And that wasn't right. And she's, of course, starting to cry. He goes, I hope you'll forgive me. She goes, of course I forgive you. I mean, we don't need tears. She's like, okay. He goes, we're good now, right? She goes, yeah. She goes, that was great. Here's one thing I need from you. Promise that you won't tell anyone, not even Jack. She's like, because I want to know who my successor is before I go public. She's like, okay, perfect. Yep. He goes, are you sure? No one means no one. Yeah. She goes, yes, I'm perfectly capable of maintaining confidentiality. He goes, well, then we shouldn't have any issues. She goes, oh, don't worry. I'm sure we'll find something to disagree on. She goes, that's exactly how I want it to be. Normal. Let's have some wine.
Yeah, confidentiality is not her not a problem for her. That's a hope issue.
And now they're toasting to seeing clearly. He brought a nice bottle of red wine. So back at the bar, Ricky knocks on the door because Jack's in the office, and he's like, there's someone here to see you. And he goes, hi, I'm Valerie Holt. Oh, the attorney. Great. So Jack invites her in to sit down. He's like, I'm Jack Sheridan. Your email said you were going to call. And she's like, yeah, well, I happen to be in the area. I thought I'd just stop by, if you have a minute. He's like, absolutely. Moves some stuff off the couch, has her sit down. He leaves the door open, which is weird. Mel's calling him. He doesn't take that call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When the lawyer is present.
Only got a few minutes, so you got to take it. So she says, your email had a lot of info, and I thought I could clarify a few things. So he's like, yeah. He goes, I think my main priority is ensuring that I have an active role in my children's lives. And she's like, okay, well, has Charmaine threatened to withhold access? And he's like, well, not directly, but her fiance did offer to adopt the twins. And she's like, well, how did you respond to that? And he's like, well, he's out of his mind if he thought I was going to give up my kids. And he goes, that's why I reached out to you. And he's like, I get a feeling about a custody issue because Charmaine and I are not married. And she's like, okay, well, if she doesn't agree to put your name on the birth certificate or sign a declaration acknowledging that you're the father, then you're going to have to file a petition of paternity. And he goes, so I'll have to prove that in court? And she's like, yeah, but it's not a simple process.
Why is nothing when it comes to simple?
No, it's always so freaking complicated. She's like, if Charmaine decides that she wants to ask for full custody, then you could be fighting for years in court. And he's like, oh, okay.
That's what he didn't want. Mm-hmm.
And I presume that the whole time that the twins are going to be living with her and Todd. And she's like, exactly. And he goes, okay, well, what if I want to hire you? How would that work? She goes, well, my hourly rate is $350. And I take a $25,000 retainer. And he's like, oh, and the look on his face is like,
basically, that's a down payment on somebody's house.
It's like, do I have a tree in the backyard that I can pick money off of? Because I don't know where I'm going to get that. And he was like, whoa. He kind of laughs about it. She goes, but since you're Bree's brother, I'll take 20. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
And he's like, she's like, is that something you could do? He goes, well, no, but I'll have to figure that out. He goes, if I have to fight to be in my children's lives, I'm going to fight.
Oh, yes.
And she's trying to be real. She's like, it will be a fight, and custody cases are emotionally and physically draining.
They are.
She goes, there's always a huge disruption to people's lives. Jack is just like mulling over this. She's like, your twins are lucky to have a father willing to sacrifice so much for them. She's like, I'll be in touch. He's like, thank you. Ugh, that's heartbreaking to hear. Because it would be easy just to say, okay, fine, adopt them and just let me see them whenever or never, just there. But he can't do that. There's no way he can do that.
Also, Todd is such a jerk.
Yes.
I think if Todd was a different type of person,
Todd would send them to boarding school.
Yeah, I just think that Jack would approach this differently. But Todd is, that's all I'm gonna say.
Todd says he wants to be a father and all that, but he doesn't act like it. Like, I don't know what his motivation was for dating someone who's like, 4 months pregnant. Like, that just seems weird to me. I don't know. Some men are into that, but like, he's not that special.
and the thing is, it's fine for, I know lots of men who marry women who have children already of their own.
Sure.
That's, if you find the person you love, you find the person you love. But the thing with Todd is, it's like a superior complex he
Yeah.
has,
Like he's
and
got a
it's
hold
so
over her because she needs so much and he can
right.
provide.
But yeah, and I think he's holding that over her head because I
Yeah.
think he senses her desperation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's where that's coming from, which basically annoys the hell out of me
No
even
good.
more than
Yeah.
Jane does.
Oh, no, I agree. I agree. So now Jack has a lot to think about. Okay, so it's evening. So Mel is home. She got the fire going. She's reading. Jack comes home. She's like, hey, I tried to call. He goes, yeah. I just got caught up at the bar. She's like, don't worry about it. He grabs a glass. She goes, where's the food? He's like, oh, sorry. I forgot that was the plan. She's like, no, it's fine. I can figure something out. He goes under the sink, grabs a bottle, pours himself a very heavy drink. She's like, are you okay? He goes, yeah, it's just been a really long day. He goes, well, I was going to surprise you, but I have no patience. So she's like, I got us tickets to Maui. Joey said that we could use her timeshare. And he goes, you booked tickets? She goes, yeah, for Christmas. I know I should have asked you first, but I just wanted to do something spontaneous for a change. And she's like, I thought it would be romantic. Like, he's not looking happy. She's like, what's wrong?
No, he looks like he's lost his best friend.
He's like, Mel, I met with an attorney today about custody of the twins. She's like, ugh, how did that go? And he goes, not great. He goes, if I want to be in their lives, I'm facing a long and expensive court battle. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry. She goes, I'll support you in whatever you do. Whatever you need to do, whatever you decide to do. He's like, yeah, I know. It's just, he's like, I feel like, he's trying to like find the right words. He feel like you're going to get the short end of the stick. She's like, I don't understand what that means. Are you talking about money? She goes, I don't care about money. He goes, no, not just money. It's time too. He goes, Mel, for the next year at least, I'm going to be juggling being a new father, fighting for custody, rebuilding my house, running the bar. She's like, yeah. He goes, and I don't think I can have another baby on top of all that. She kind of pauses and she's like, he's like, I'm sorry.
Awkward silence.
Yeah. She's like just shaking her head. She's like, you know what? She's like, it's okay. And she rubs his leg. She goes, we can wait until you're ready. Okay? And he's like, and what if we wait and then I realize I can't handle supporting two families? You would have wasted all that time you can't get back. He's like, I can't be the person that stands in the way of you becoming a mother. He goes, I can't hurt you like that. And she's like, well, look, as long as I know how you feel about it, then it's my choice. He goes, no, that's just it. He goes, you shouldn't have to choose. You deserve to be with someone that can give you everything you want.
Oh,
and I don't think it's me.
Yeah, exactly. And you sense where this is going.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You know it's a down. You can see him inserting foot into mouth, and it's going downhill from here, and it's not good. It's an avalanche waiting for him.
Oh, yeah. The avalanche has just started rolling down the hill, and they're in the way. She's like, are you saying that you want to end this? As she starts tearing up, and he's like, it's not because I want to. She's like, oh my God. I can't believe this is happening now. And he's like, Mel, you're an amazing woman. She goes, Jack, you're not listening to what I want. He's like, I am listening. That's what I'm trying to say. I know what you want. I don't know that I can give it to you. And it's funny because if you listen to when he says that, his accent, the more emotional he gets, the more his accent comes out. It doesn't happen very often, but this is one of those times where if you listen, you can hear it. It's kind of funny, little tidbit. And she's just looking like first she was hurt. First she was hurt. Like her first initial reaction is like, you're stabbing my heart.
Yeah.
And Jack's like, this is killing me. And then all of a sudden her hurt turns to like
being pissed.
Furious. Lava is boiling in her brain right now. And she's like, he goes, but I know I'm doing the right thing.
No, you're not. But you being an ass is part of being a man sometimes.
And then she looks at him dead in the eye. And the words of the song, it's like, I never thought we'd say goodbye.
Goodbye.
It's a very good song. They always pick such good music.
Yeah.
She's like, get out. She goes, get out of my house.
Yep. Being an ass is just what you just did there. Just broke the woman's heart. Yep. Oh my God. The thing is, she's invested so much, he worked so hard to get her, and now this is what he turns around, he does. Really?
And the words of the song is like, I know you'll find someone who gives you the time I didn't give to you. It's like, It's so perfect. I'm sorry, but I have to go. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, he definitely mucked this one up,
So he
man.
goes and he sits in his car, his truck, and it's just like, you don't see him cry very often.
Yeah,
This is one of those times. He's
yeah,
just like sitting in his car, just, he lost it. He just can't.
yeah. Well, he knows he mucked that one up. You know,
And he thinks he's doing the right thing
oh yeah, I know he thinks he's doing the right thing.
because he's like, if I can't give you a baby and that's what you
Yeah,
want, I can't be with you. And that's it.
yep.
Now,
It is.
interestingly enough,
Mm-hmm.
they, both of them, both Alex Breckenridge and Martin Henderson, completely 100% disagreed with that storyline. Every interview, if anyone ever asks them about, hey, what's the deal with like Jack breaking up with him, he goes, why would he do that? He was like, he would say, Jack would never do that. He worked so hard. He fought so hard
Exactly.
to be with her. And that's what's going to, really? And she's like, why would he do that? Why would he break up? Why would you do that? And they're like, okay, we get it. Because if there's no breakup, then obviously they get back together, and all of the things that happen after that have to happen in order to get them to where they are now.
Yeah, but it's still sucky.
But that's the only, I guess that was one of the only ways they could do it.
Nah, they could have found another way.
You know, it's the push and pull and the longing and the separation and the together, and every time they're apart, they come together stronger, and that's
I guess since neither one of us are writers,
yeah,
it's different for those of us as viewers
right.
because we don't understand the concept they're getting at because we saw the struggle for them to get to this point, and
Right.
then you basically throw them under the bus.
Well, it's almost like they to like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. They keep doing this back and forth,
Yeah.
back and forth, back and forth. And I know it's drawing it out and the longing, and it make better in the
Yeah.
end and all of that, but it's painful to go through the journey.
Yeah, because there are other things they could struggle with. Did they have to struggle with this one?
Yeah, well, yes, of course, because no one can ever be happy for more than 5 minutes. It's like,
I guess so.
I mean, they were perfectly fine that morning. He was trying to get her to come back to bed. Like, everything was fine 12 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently not so much now.
Nope.
And she kicked him out.
I'd have done the same thing, girlfriend.
Yep. She's like, I mean, and she went from hurt to get out of my house.
Yeah, because not only would I have kicked him out, I'd have thrown something at his sorry ass.
Because what did they say? Grief has the stages of grief. Yeah, she went to anger real quick. Like, she just skipped over the first. I don't even know what the stages are, but whatever they are, she hit anger. Like, she hop, skipped, and jumped right into that one.
She's like, he's an ass.
Yep.
How did I get myself with this?
But
asshole?
just know the actors disagreed, as the fans, with that choice.
Yeah.
So they said they could have done something different. Jack would have never broken up with her.
I agree.
Like, you don't
totally
pine
agree.
after someone and do everything you can and then just go,
Exactly.
I'm not good enough.
You spent 2 seasons trying to get into this woman's life as a love interest, and that's the route they took.
Yeah,
No.
I know. It's a choice.
I'm sorry.
It all works out in the end, but it's just going to take a minute to get there.
Yeah, I'm not appreciating the minute. But
that's okay. The next couple of episodes, and the finale. Hi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Heaven help us all.
That's true.
My.
Anyway, folks.
Yep.
That's the end of that.
That was the end. We are now on to episode 8 is next. There's 3 more left of this season. And we'll be back next time for another episode of Virgin River. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.